All right, moving on to lesson 20.3, diseases caused by bacteria and viruses. And our goal is to analyze strategies for prevention, detection, and treatment for communicable and chronic diseases. And this one is not a far side. I don't know why I picked this one out. Let's see. Structurally, the building is fine, but sadly, the earthquake destroyed all of our art pieces. Etch-a-Sketch Museum. That's cute. That's probably why. Okay, so moving on to our objectives. They are to explain how bacteria cause disease, then how viruses cause disease, and then also define emergent disease and explain why emergent diseases are a threat to human health. Kind of common sense, actually. Well, let's think about it first. We share this planet with prokaryotes and viruses, and most of the time we are never aware of their relationship with them. Often our relationships are highly beneficial, but in a few cases, sharing simply just doesn't work, and disease then is the result. So explain how bacteria causes disease. So microorganisms like viruses and prokaryotes that cause diseases are first of all called pathogens. At the present time, all known prokaryotic pathogens are bacteria. However, in the future, scientists may discover archaea associated with disease. Louis Pasteur helped to establish what has become known as a germ theory of disease when he showed that bacteria was responsible for a number of human and animal illnesses. Bacteria produce disease in one of two general ways. Some bacteria destroy living cells and tissues of the infected organism directly, while some cause tissue damage when they provoke a response from the immune system. Other bacteria release toxins or poisons that interfere with the normal activity of the host, and some common human bacterial diseases are shown on this table, like Lyme disease, tetanus, tuberculosis, bacterial meningitis, and strep throat. One example of bacterial pathogen that damages host tissue is the bacterium that causes tuberculosis. This pathogen is inhaled into the lungs, where its growth triggers an immune response that can destroy large areas of tissue. The bacterium may also enter blood vessel and travel to other sites of the body, causing similar damage too. Bacteria that produce toxins include the species that cause diphtheria and the species responsible for a deadly form of food poisoning known as botulism. Diphtheria has largely been eliminated in developing countries by vaccination, but outbreaks of botulism still claim many, many lives. Although most bacteria are harmless and many are beneficial, the everyday risk of any person acquiring a bacterial infection are great enough to warrant efforts to control bacterial growth. There are various control methods that are used to control bacteria. First, washing hands or other surfaces with soap under running water doesn't kill pathogens, but it does help dislodge both bacteria and viruses. Chemical solutions that kill bacteria can be used to clean bathrooms, kitchens, hospital rooms, and other places where bacteria may flourish. Low temperatures, like those inside a refrigerator, will slow the growth of bacteria and keep most food fresher for a longer period of time than possible at room temperature. Boiling, frying, or steaming can sterilize many kinds of food by raising the temperature of the food to a point where bacteria is then killed. Sterilization of objects such as medical instruments at temperatures well above 100 degrees Celsius can prevent the growth of potentially dangerous bacteria, because most bacteria cannot survive at such temperatures. Many bacterial diseases can be prevented by stimulating the body's immune system with vaccines. A vaccine is a preparation of weakened or killed pathogens or inactivated toxins. When injected into the body, vaccine prompts the body to produce immunity to a specific disease. Immunity is the body's ability to destroy pathogens or inactive toxins. A number of drugs can be used to attack bacterial infections. These drugs include antibiotics, such as penicillin or tetracycline, that block the growth and reproduction of bacteria. Antibiotics disrupt proteins or cell processes that are specific to bacterial cells. In this way, they do not harm the host cells. Antibiotics are not effective against viral infections, though. So, explain how bacterial can cause diseases. Bacteria can cause disease by destroying living cells or releasing chemicals that upset the homeostasis of the organism. Objective 2, explain how viruses cause disease. So, like bacteria, viruses produce disease by disrupting the body's normal homeostasis. Viruses produce serious animal and plant diseases as well. Some common human viral diseases are also shown in this table: the cold, the influenza, AIDS, chickenpox, hepatitis, West Nile, and human papillomavirus, or HPV. In many viral infections, viruses attack and destroy certain cells in the body, causing the symptoms of the associated disease. Poliovirus, for example, destroys cells in the nervous system, producing paralysis. Other viruses cause infected cells to change their patterns of growth and development. Sometimes this can lead to cancer. In most cases, the best way to protect against most viral diseases lies in prevention, often by the use of vaccines. Many vaccines have been developed in the last 3 centuries. Today, there are vaccines against more than 24 infectious diseases. In 1969, Edward Jenner performs the first inoculations against smallpox using the less harmful but similar cowpox virus. In the 1880s, Louis Pasteur developed vaccines against anthrax and rabies. And in 1923, Albert Calmet and Camille Guerin developed a vaccine against tuberculosis. In the 1950s, Jonas Salk developed a polio vaccine that uses killed viruses. Albert Sabin develops a polio vaccine that uses weakened viruses. Before the advent of the polio vaccine, hospitals were filled with polio-stricken children and machines called iron lungs, which helped them to breathe. And in 1981, a vaccine against hepatitis B that uses recombinant DNA gains government approval. And then 2006, a vaccine against the human papillomavirus, a virus known to cause certain cancers, gains also approval. So a recent study shows that cold and flu viruses are often transmitted by hand-to-mouth contact. Effective ways to prevent infection include washing your hands frequently, avoiding contact with sick individuals, and coughing or sneezing into a tissue or your sleeve or not into your hands. Unlike bacterial diseases, viral diseases cannot be treated with antibiotics. In recent years, limited progress has been made in developing a handful of antiviral drugs that attack specific viral enzymes that host cells do not have. These treatments include an antiviral medication that can help speed recovery from the flu virus and another that may, in certain instances, prevent HIV. So, our objective 2 was to explain how viruses cause disease. Viruses cause disease by directly destroying living cells or by affecting cellular processes in a way that upset homeostasis. Objective 3. Define emergent disease and explain why emergent diseases are a threat to human health. If pathogenic viruses and bacteria were unable to change over time and evolve, that would be kind of nice. They would pose far less of a threat than they actually do. Unfortunately, the short time between successive generations of the pathogens allow them to evolve rapidly, especially in response to human efforts to control them. An unknown disease that appears in a population for the first time or a well-known disease that suddenly becomes harder to control is called emerging disease. This map shows locations worldwide where specific emerging diseases have broken out in recent years. In recent years, new diseases such as severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, in Asia have appeared. At the same time, some diseases thought to be under control have come back too. Changes in lifestyle and commerce have made emerging diseases even more of a threat. High-speed travel means that a person can move halfway around the world in a day. Huge quantities of food and consumer goods are now shipped between regions of the world that previously had little contact with each other. And human populations that were once isolated by oceans and mountains ranges are now in close contact with more developed parts of the world. The possibility of rapid spread of new diseases is a risk of every trip a person takes and every shipment of food or goods. Because of their sudden appearance and resistance to existing control methods, emergent diseases are of particular concern. Deeper understanding of the functions, the molecular structures, and genetics of bacteria and viruses will be one key to defending against them. When first introduced in the 1940s, penicillin, an antibiotic derived from fungi, was a miracle drug. Patients suffering from life-threatening infections were cured almost immediately by this powerful new drug. But within a few decades, however, penicillin lost much of its effectiveness, as have other more current antibiotics. The culprit, of course, is evolution. The widespread use of antibiotics has led to a process of natural selection that favors the emergence of resistance to these powerful drugs. Physicians now must fight superbugs that are resistant to whole groups of antibiotics and that transfer drug-resistant genes from one bacterium to another through conjugation. An especially dangerous form of multiple drug resistance has recently appeared in the common bacterium. Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, known as MRSA, can cause infections that are especially difficult to control. MRSA skin infections can spread by close contact, including the sharing of personal items such as athletic gear, and are especially dangerous in hospitals where MRSA bacteria can infect surgical wounds and then spread from patient to patient. Infection by MRSA can be very serious or fatal for people in hospitals and nursing homes who have weakened immune systems. This table shows the incidence of MRSA infections in U.S. hospitals during a 13-year period. They have certainly been on the rise, haven't they? Oops, sorry. Because viruses replicate so quickly, their genetic makeup can change rapidly, sometimes allowing virus to jump from one host to species to another. Researchers have evidence that this is how the virus that caused AIDS originated, moving from non-human primates into humans. Public health officials are especially worried about the flu virus. Gene shuffling among different flu viruses affect wild domestic bird populations has led to the emergence of the bird flu that is similar in many ways to the most deadly human versions of the flu. Only very slight genetic changes may be needed for the bird flu virus to make the jump to humans, where there would be little resistance to it. In 1972, this is even more scary, people, Stanley Persener became interested in scrapie, which is an infectious disease in sheep, the exact cause of which was unknown. The experiments then revealed clumps of tiny protein particles in the brains of infected sheep. Persener called these particles prions, short for protein infectious particles. Prions are misfolded proteins in the brain that causes a chain reaction of misfolding in other normal proteins they contact, eventually clogging in the brain tissue and causing disease. Mad cow disease. Many animals, including humans, can become infected with prions. This chart shows how prion-caused disease is similar in some ways to other viral infection. So, objective 3 is define emerging disease and explain why emerging diseases are a threat to human health. The pathogens that cause emerging diseases are particularly threatening to human health because human populations have little or no resistance to them, because methods of control have yet to be developed. Our objectives were explain how bacteria cause disease, explain how viruses cause disease, and 3, define emergent disease and explain why emergent diseases are a threat to human health. And yes, they also help support our goal of analyzing strategies for prevention, detection, and treatment of communicable and chronic diseases. All right, guys. It's been a long night for me. I hope you enjoyed that picture. Adios.